Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the future of fleet connectivity powered by Mix Telematics and the Matt Brown Show. With me on the line from the UK is Jonathan Bates. Welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Matt. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
So, Jonathan, this is the first episode of a three-part series, so super excited to get into all the amazing stuff that you guys are doing. We're going to show you some videos. We're going to get into the meat and the potatoes of everything you need to know about Mix Telematics. But in this episode specifically, we're going to be talking about the evolving fleet information experience, data, AI, and all this kind of cool stuff. So I'm going to enjoy this conversation, I am sure. So just to get us out of the starting blocks, Jonathan, maybe just give us the elevator pitch. Who are you exactly? What do you do at Mix Telematics? Maybe just give us the broad brushstrokes about what exactly does Mix Telematics do, and so from there we'll then get into the detail.
Great, thanks, Matt. Yeah, let's start with a little bit of an intro as to who Mix are then and what we do. So in shortest possible terms, we connect and protect the fleets of this world, all over the world, in more than 120 countries. We're particularly focused on making sure that the drivers of all of our customers get home safely every single day. Alongside that, that generates a whole bunch of efficiencies, both financial and in terms of organizational efficiencies for those fleets. And we help them stay compliant with all relevant legislation too. So that's at the highest level. Obviously, there's billions of different data points that we can discuss, but that's really the elevator pitch. My role at Mix, so I'm responsible for marketing across the world and product management, but my background is really in what we call the OEM space, the original equipment manufacturer space. So I worked for a large European entity for 7 years on the light commercial vehicle product management side. Before that, I actually studied law, so we get into some of the compliance elements that are really important in our space. And for the last 9 years, I've been at Mix, working all across the world to help promote what we do.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you for that, Jonathan. So I have a question for you. I think that the space of technology is moving so fast. I mentioned data and AI in the beginning, but could you maybe describe to us the past and present of how data is used by fleets to solve problems? So we understand now exactly why you guys exist. You care about, getting people home safely or fleet drivers home safely. So why don't you unpack that for us? Like, what is the past and the present of how data is used by fleets? How has that all evolved over the last few years?
Yeah, it's changed massively, actually, Matt. So Mix have been going for more than 25 years now. And back in the past, and I think it is really important to see where it's come from to sort of understand how we got here today and what the future holds. But in the past, right from the beginning, fleets have always had what I call these kind of existential questions around how they operate. So very top level questions. So how can they improve their safety? How can they stay compliant? How can they be more efficient? And really in the past, right back at the beginning, there were some data points to help, but it was really sort of the big bang stage of the data universe, if you will. So there wasn't reams and reams of information to help. There were these data points like GPS positions, identifying the driver, and then some kind of basic driver data. And what we found at the time is there was an opportunity for an organization like ours to help both capture that data, but then convert it through applications and modules into actually making it meaningful information that then answers those existential questions to some extent. And that was really where it all started. But it quickly moved on from there. And I think after a few years of operation, what started to happen is companies started to evolve, the fleet process started to evolve, and those problems became much more nuanced than those kind of original existential questions. So a lot more data, kind of raw material data, was needed to answer those questions and a whole bunch of new questions that arose. And really, there's so much that we could say on this, but some of the real important stuff that started to arise was, well, how can we make sure that we're respecting driver privacy while still keeping all those drivers safe? And how can we start to operate with the lowest environmental impact possible? So you can see how these things are starting to creep into the world that we know today. And so that information experience needed to to really evolve so that those kind of questions could be answered much more completely than they ever had in the past. That's kind of where we start this journey, I would say, Matt, is that's the past, and the present now are those much more nuanced questions about using that data to really create sustainability.
Sure, you guys are doing some amazing stuff. I mean, I think the one thing that I'm seeing, because I do a lot of interviews, I talk to a lot of business leaders all around the world every week. And one of the things that I'm observing is that there's just, everybody has data. And in many cases, businesses don't know quite what to do with it. You know, if you think about something simple like know your customer at a bank, at least in South Africa, and I'm sure this problem exists all around the world, it's like, who the hell is this person? You know what I mean? Who is my customer? Number one problem. You know, so I want to maybe use that to maybe change gears somewhat and talk about a case study that you guys have had in the logistics industry, you know, specifically. And maybe you could set this up for us, Jonathan. It's a video that we're going to play to you guys just to maybe really help people understand practically how to get the most out of your data as a logistics company, as a fleet management company, etc. So, Jonathan, why don't you tee this one up for us?
That's great. Thanks, Matt. So I think the key takeaway here should be that it's really the experience you need now is much more about change management. So yes, you need data, you need then applications, you need apps, you need stakeholder engagement, but it's all about how you bring all that stuff together to actually create real transformative change. And that's really what this short video that Matt's going to roll for us now is going to show us.
And in 3, 2, 1, here we go.
We were fortunate enough to be one of the first contracts to trial mixed telematics. The system was a success from a user point of view, but also from a change management perspective. MyMix is the app that the individual driver can access to review their own RAG scores. They can look at their own driving style, their own performance, look at themselves against their colleagues to see where they rank. It allows them to identify the areas for improvement very quickly and very easily. The forward-facing cameras have been instrumental when it comes to training and engaging with drivers. I have a driver team who have an average of 25 years experience on the road. To be able to have a system that allows me to speak to a driver and understand their experiences and what they're encountering is paramount. The footage speaks for itself and allows safety conversations to flow very easily. Mixed telematics is so easy to embed into someone's culture no matter what they've seen before. That's what sets it apart and that's what makes the difference. It's an excellent system.
So that's really crystallized what you guys do for me somewhat. You know, it's and maybe one of the things I'm interested is to see how things have evolved and mature. I mean, if you think about Tesla, the Tesla truck, for instance, that's coming fully automated. You know, so how does that change the mixed telematics business, if at all? You know, and so I want to use that context to maybe discuss with you, Jonathan, you know, the future. So what does the future fleet information experience look like from your perspective?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, Matt, and we don't really need a crystal ball for it because you can see, as you just said, there's a huge level of autonomy that's coming from the vehicle perspective. But that, you know, that isn't fully here yet, and it's not everywhere. That's probably sort of the flagship use case. But really, the way I see it is there's huge value for fleets to kind of segregate those experiences into the connected vehicle data, and that future really looks like, yes, you can fit an aftermarket piece of hardware, let's say like a mixed hardware or someone else's hardware, or you can use the actual vehicle's own onboard computer to derive all that information. But the key is the future for us is all about the service, the software, and that information experience that we provide to the stakeholders in the customer's fleet. So it's not all about that hardware, that initial data capture. And then the other side of that coin really is the driving side. So yes, increasing autonomy is coming. I think that there's probably an overestimation of how quickly complete and total autonomy will take over the world. I see it much more as a cooperative, almost a co-pilot scenario where the driver is highly significant to that journey experience. Plus, then there's some autonomization of some of the functions, let's say, of driving. But even in a totally automated world, the driver is often an erroneous label, because the driver is really the operator of that vehicle, but they're doing a job at the destination very commonly. So if you imagine like a delivery experience, then that driver is really only driving the vehicle in order to get to the destination to perform the role that they're actually truly employed for, which is to make the customer delivery. So there's a lot that we can do in terms of data provision, meaningful information at the delivery point that really adds a lot of value there to that customer experience as well. So yes, the future's autonomous, but that just really moves the game on. It certainly doesn't stop the game from being played.
Absolutely. The rules just changed a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And the same with the whole electric vehicle experience. There's a huge importance, and we can get into this later for sure, but there's a huge importance with transitioning to electric fleets, and companies like ours are hugely important in that, because to make that transition you need a lot of data, and you need the data to make sense. You need it to show where the opportunity is for that change into the electric vehicle world. So there's huge scope for the kind of services that we provide in the future to add a lot of value.
I mean, it's like, just because you drive a Tesla or a Model X doesn't mean you stop needing to go from A to B.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And that's the key, is that the type of role that those vehicles and drivers are performing is often about what you do at the destination more than what you do on the journey. But safety is always going to be paramount to these companies, irrespective of whether it's a semi-autonomous or a completely manual process. And that's really where our core DNA resides.
If anything, you're well positioned to take advantage, or to help your customers take advantage of this autonomous trend that's going to inevitably arrive.
Absolutely, because with all of the information on all these millions and billions of data points across the world, with all these different vehicle types and different driver types just traversing the whole planet, all of that data over 25 years is hugely informative to show that evolution of how that experience has changed over time and what needs to be done next. And that's really the ultimate in the evolving information experience. Is we're moving from data to information to reports to then being able to get predictive in the type of scenarios that this data allows us to do. So with more and more data science embedded into our organization, which is what we've been busy with for a few years now, we're getting into prescriptive analytics, and predictive first and then prescriptive. And with prescriptive, you can actually start to take action as well. And you can see there's a huge potential there between the kind of action you can take on a software side with that data and the kind of action that's happening in the vehicle from the automation side too. So there's huge synergy with what the future holds.
Yeah, it seems to me like there's a consistent revolution that's happening. One of the key terms that I'm hearing from you, Jonathan, is this idea about the information experience. So for so long, it's always been, the customer experience. You got to be the CX. We're trying to optimize our customer experience. And what you're talking about is the information experience specifically, and how you guys can kind of solve this overwhelming information experience for the average customer. So it's also interesting to observe that there's a revolution in the space consistently. We spoke about autonomous vehicles, for instance. Could you talk to us about the human expectation revolution? What do you mean, and what is the point of view around that?
Yeah, for sure. It's something that's really quite close to my heart. I'm super passionate about this. And if you think about how over time the type of technology we use in our personal lives, for instance, it's evolved so much in terms of the level of what we're now able to do, but more importantly, how quickly this stuff gets into your hands from the conception in someone's mind to the inception point in the go-to-market. You look at, it took like 68 years for airplanes to get 50 million passengers, but with Pokemon Go, it took like 19 days to get 50 million users. So, you can just imagine how the expectation is, I want this and I want it now, and I know that I can get it, and I know that it should be absolutely fantastic. When I log into this app, it should give me everything I need straight away. In fact, it should have already predicted everything I need before I even log in. And that's the kind of expectation revolution that we're seeing, and it's accelerating so fast. I'm not going to use cheesy examples around Apple and Steve Jobs to illustrate the point, but we expect so much from our technology in our personal lives now, and that is coming across straight away into our professional practices. We expect, when we get down and sit at our desk in the morning, we expect the microphone to be fantastic on the podcast. It should automatically understand I'm doing a podcast with Matt Brown, so it should have that right setting, that right level. When I log into my phone, it knows where I'm going in the car before I start the journey. So it knows how to put the sat nav onto the right location, etc., etc. So this is all happening in our personal lives, and it's traversing into our professional lives. And I think from a company like ours that fundamentally is trying to provide answers to some pretty big questions, it means that we've had to evolve our tech so that our information experience is designed with the customer stakeholder groups in mind. So like the driver has to have a very well-defined experience, and it can't just be for any driver anywhere. It has to be in that particular region, in that particular sector, for that type of size of fleet, for that type of operation. That driver experience has got to be spot on. The driver supervisor who looks after the drivers, that experience has got to be spot on. The fleet manager, the health and safety director, the CEO of the customer, they all have to have an experience that's designed specifically for them in order for a company like ours to stay competitive with what the human expectation revolution is demanding. Sorry, I know I'm going on, but I'm super proud
not
about
at
this.
all, not at all. And I think it's a very important point that you're landing, because I mean, we all get frustrated. This is the universal truth. So people listening to us right now will know for a fact that technology at some point will let you down.
Yeah.
Like the worst thing for me is with my iPhone and then having to type something. Like I was trying to say something to my wife the other day, and it just came out all wrong. And she's like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "No, I meant this." And I'm like, "No, it's because I'm using what's the term when you dictate? So instead of typing, you dictate. So when I'm in my car, I'm using dictation. So obviously dictation can't get it perfect, So you want to get it perfect. So we understand, to your point, Jonathan, that when technology does let you down, your expectations aren't being met, and it's that old saying that, expectations minus reality equals your happiness. So when you talk about, customer experience and information experience, to your point, what you're saying is that the expectation and the revolution associated with that from a human perspective is that technology has to work. It has to work. And and it's because technology is so amazing. It's like the fact that we're doing this podcast together.
It's incredible what we can now do, and what you've said sort of hits home to me as well. In that, when I first started in this specific industry, although I've been involved with fleets for 15, 16 years, when I started in the telematics industry, one of the first things I said is, why do customers want to do this proof of concept thing before they adopt the technology? And what is this proof of concept thing? Is it that they don't believe that the technology is going to work? And it's to what you're saying. You start off with this kind of suspicion that, you've got to show me that this thing actually works. And it's like, geez, these guys have been doing this for nearly 20 years. The stuff works. It's more, does it work for me? Is my expectation being met? Is what is in my mind for what are the outcomes I expect? Is this technology an enabler? Back to that change management conversation we had before. Is this an enabler for the outcomes I need to get to? So I think designing with the end customers, stakeholders in mind is really the golden ticket for this, rather than designing, okay, this is a cool piece of tech, let's see what it can do. We should add the addendum to that. Let's see what it can do for this specific customer, for this specific stakeholder. And that's where I think the the real key is.
So look, let's maybe double down on expectations. What is your expectation for our audience and viewers who've been watching this episode right now? They're interested to know more about Mix Telematics. What would you like our viewers and listeners around the world to do?
Yeah, I would like to think that there are some fairly senior people in different fleets around the world listening to this, and I would like them to really take a look deeper into what I'm saying about the certainly the different types of experiences. And we've got a whole bunch of information, as you'd expect, on our website. But I would love people to just connect directly with me via LinkedIn, and I'll happily have a conversation with people and chew their ear off about whatever it is they need to know with regards to connectivity. It's what I'm passionate about, and I connect with people every day and have these conversations, and I'm excited about doing that, Matt. That's what gets me up in the morning.
I can tell you're passionate about it. And so guys, if you would like to join the conversation, you can join the conversation at Mix Telematics on Twitter. So that's at Mix Telematics at Twitter. Just tweet us or head on over to mixtelematics.com and join the conversation there. Look at what the guys are doing. There's even more information, to your point, Jonathan. And so that, guys, wraps up our first episode, the Evolving Fleet Information Experience, as part of a 3-part series, The Future of Fleet Connectivity. And we'll see you in the second episode, where we're going to be covering the transformative impact of AI and machine learning. So thank you guys for your time. We will see you in the next episode.